Hey everyone, how's it going? Welcome back to my channel. For this video, I'm going to continue to work on my dice rolling app. So now that I have the two mechanics, I have the physics-based roll and the animated roll, I'm going to create a toggle so that the user can switch between the two. So let's get to it. So here I have the project open and let me show you the mechanic working already. So here I've got the dice and currently it's set to physics. So I can move my mouse around and it shakes the dice, and then when I click, rolls the dice. And if I reset it and I click this button on top, it changes to now animated. Now to create this feature, I needed to add two UI buttons to my canvas. The first button I called to animated roll, and the second button I called to physics roll. I also changed the source image for each of these buttons and the text value for what each of the buttons say. Once I created these two buttons, there was some code that I needed to add to my scripts. So here I am in my animated roll script. Now I already talked about these 6 variables in my last video, but this first variable is a public static bool, which I've called isAnimated. I then have an array of animators, which I've called allAnimators, and a game object called diceRoot. Now here in the onEnable function, I'm using playerprefs to get the last saved value of whether the player was using the animated roll or the physics roll. I'm then checking to see if the value of isAnimated is true or false. If it's true, I'm calling this function, which is enableAnimated, and if it's false, I'm calling this function, which is disableAnimated. Then in all my other previously created functions, I'm adding an if statement where I'm checking to see if isAnimated is true. This will make it so that the code inside the function will only execute if we're using the animated roll mechanic. So here I have another if statement, and inside the reset function, I also have another if statement where I'm checking the value of isAnimated. And inside this function, the first thing that I'm doing is resetting the rotation of the diceRoot object. I'm setting it equal to -180, 0, 0. The reason why I'm doing this is because the physics-based roll mechanic can actually mess up the rotation of the diceRoot object. And if the rotation of this object is messed up, then the rotation of the animations will also be messed up. On the next line of code, I'm setting isAnimated equal to true, and I'm saving that value back into playerprefs. The last part of this function, I have a for each loop where I'm looping through my array of animators, and I'm enabling all of those animators. Next, I have this disableAnimated function, and inside this function, I'm doing pretty much the opposite of what I have in the enableAnimated function. So first I'm setting isAnimated equal to false, then saving that value to the playerprefs, and lastly, I'm for looping through all the animators and I'm disabling them. Now these two functions are also paired to the buttons that I created earlier. Now here I have my physics roll script, and I added pretty much the same stuff that I added to my animated roll script. Here I have a public static bool, which is called isPhysicsRoll. I also created 2 game object variables. One is for the physics button, and the other is for the animated button. Here in the onEnable function, I'm using playerprefs to get the last saved value for our isPhysicsRoll variable. If it's true, I'm then getting the rigid body of my dice object. I'm setting the isKinematic equal to false, and then calling this enablePhysics function. And I'm disabling the animated button and enabling the physics button. If it's false, I'm doing the opposite. I'm setting isKinematic to true. This will keep the dice from rolling with physics. I'm calling the disablePhysics function. I'm enabling the animated button, and I'm disabling the physics button. Then in all my other functions, I'm adding an if statement where I'm checking to see if isPhysicsRoll true, because we only want to do the code inside these functions if we're using the physics-based roll mechanic. So here I have another if statement and another if statement. And down here at the bottom, I have my enablePhysics function and my disablePhysics function. Inside the enablePhysics function, all I'm doing is I'm setting the isPhysicsRoll equal to true. I'm then saving it to playerprefs, and I'm setting isKinematic equal to false. In the disablePhysics function, I'm doing the opposite. I'm setting is physics roll equal to false, saving it to player prefs, and I'm setting is kinematic equal to true. After all this, we can then go back to the project. For the animated roll script, I needed to fill in my array of animators with all the different dice animators, and I needed to set the dice root game object. For the physics roll script, all I had to add were the 2 buttons for toggling between physics and animated rolls. Next, we'll look at the 2 buttons. For the to animated roll, I'm calling the physics roll.disablePhysics function, the animated roll.enableAnimated function, and then enabling the to physics roll button and disabling this button. For the to physics roll button, I'm calling animated roll.disableAnimated, physics roll.enablePhysics, and then I'm enabling the to animated roll button and I'm disabling this button. So now that I have that all set up, I'll play through the project one more time. Now, even though there's 2 buttons, they're really working just like a toggle system. So the buttons are sharing the same space. When I click one button, it switches to the other button. And when I click that button, it switches back. And all the functionality of the physics-based roll is able to execute. And if it's using the animated roll mechanic, then the isAnimated variable is set to true, and all the animated functionality is able to execute. And there you have it. I've now created a toggle system between the physics-based roll mechanic and the animated roll mechanic. If you like this video, make sure you give it a thumbs up. If you have any questions or suggestions, leave them in the comments below, and make sure that you subscribe to my channel so you can be up to date with all my latest videos. We'll see you next time.